All right, welcome to the latest episode of Conversations, where we sit down one-on-one with an actor, a director, a producer, a screenwriter. And in this case, we got all those in one package with someone whose work I've watched, a brother I respect, a man who epitomizes growth in this industry. I want to introduce Deon Taylor. Dion, welcome to Conversations, brother.
Man, Tim, thank you so much for having me, man. Obviously, I'm a giant fan, so ready for conversations, baby. Let's do it.
Brother, I'm a giant fan of you, man. I mean, I was going through your filmography, and it's really funny, man, because, me and my peers in our space, man, we usually have conversations with each other. The Wilsons, the Shawns, all of us, we sit down and we talk about the game. And it's refreshing to me. I'll start with this. It's refreshing to me to see somebody who, as I said in the opening, epitomizes growth, man. And what I mean by that is that there's so many filmmakers that I club from time to time. Because I'm like, dude, you on film 7 and you don't seem to be progressing in your art. Dion is somebody, man, I watched, whether it was Chain Letter back in the day, Supremacy, on and on and on. And every film, man, to me gets more robust. It gets richer. You add a tool to your toolbox every time you step behind that camera, brother. So first of all, talk about the process, man, as I'm giving it to you about growth. Talk to me about how you as a filmmaker have grown from the first time when you were working on your projects back in like the early 2008s, 2007s to where we are right now, D.
Yeah, man, I think, that's a little bit of being self-taught. My whole passion to just go make film was because I loved it. And I think I could speak for everyone who's picked up a camera and just was like, oh man, I just want to go try to make a movie, right? And what ultimately happens is I view film a lot like sports. Being self-taught is a lot like being drafted to the NBA out of high school. You don't know what you need to know. You're just talented. You know what I mean? So you're like, I know how to jump high, I know how to shoot the jumper, you know what I mean? But you don't know how to play that game yet. And it takes time and it takes a lot of practice, man. And what I've learned is over the last few years, I remember first movie I ever did, I remember working on Chain Letter and I don't know no lenses. I don't know what the camera does. I just know what I want to see in front of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
right.
Then as you grow and you get to something like, for me, Supremacy was the first time I was like, wow, 16 millimeter film. You know what I mean? This style lenses, now I want the camera to begin to work for me. So you go through these little modes, but you're constantly learning. And each film, to me, should be how you're getting better and better and better and better. Some of the things that I started out doing, I never do anymore because I'm like, oh, that was whack. Why did I do that? You know what I mean? And so you view film that way. And ultimately, you get to a place to where you now know what style of movie you want to make inside of the budgets that you have. You know what I mean? So I'm going so a couple of years ago, I was like, The Intruder, I'm gonna do it this way, but people didn't really realize that movie took place in a house the whole film. You know what I mean? So I'm in and out of a house a couple times, but that money is in that house. You know what I mean? So I know, okay, this is what I got to do lens-wise. And then you get to Black and Blue where they take the handcuffs off a little bit. So now you're like, all right, here's the story I want to tell there. But yes, it should be a constant push of how do I get better? What am I doing wrong? And also being a student. I'm a student of this, man. I knew nothing. No one I know was in the film business. No one I knew was a director or a writer or anything like that. So a lot of what I'm doing is studying movies that I really, really like, listening to a lot of commentary, watching films, beginning to understand what actors want to do, why they do the different things that they do, and then also being real with myself, like what kind of movies does Dion want to make each time? And that's kind of like what it is, man. It's a lot of work, but like basketball, which I go to a lot because I came from that background, right. It is tedious, man. You got to be a gym rat if you want to be good. You know what I mean? You can't just be like, oh, I like it because people take pictures and scream when you get a slam dunk. But it's got to be like, no, man, I'm really in this gym when ain't nobody here working, shooting shots. And that's how I take film. I'm like, you know, my wife is always like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm watching this behind the scenes of this old ass movie. You know what I mean? And she's like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, because this is how I'm learning. I didn't get a chance to go to film school to know what these things are. As a matter of fact, I've spoken at a bunch of film schools now, and I'm going like, wow, man, I would have loved to have that knowledge of lens and camera and lighting and you know what I mean? And oh, this is what that does and cause and effect. But now I've learned it on my own. So that's the idea behind how this works.
Right. All right. So the other thing that really jumped out at me is that over the last 10 years, you and I have talked, and you know, you've talked to us as a group of critics about how the game has sort of changed now because we've got more people of color, more Black people who are telling stories from our own point of view, right? So in that space now, we've kind of seen that, you know, Spike Lee makes a certain type of movie. Ava DuVernay makes a certain type of movie. Ryan Coogler, Barry Jenkins, these guys, Steve McQueen, all make certain types of movies. For you, your genre of choice is, of course, these thrillers, which I love because, you know, if this is going to be the lane that you in, you know, do what you do best. And right now, brother, you are dropping it as on these thrillers, right? So what was it about this genre, Dion, that spoke to you and said that, you know, I want to make these films, man, that kind of have people on the edge of their seats, put some twists and turns in it. What is it about that? What is it about your background that had you gravitate toward that space?
Oh man, a lot. You know, when I was younger, man, like we talked about this a little bit before, which is escapism. You know, I remember growing up in, you know, Gary, Indiana, and being like, you know, we don't have no money, and violence is rampant, and, you know, if we have an opportunity to go to the movies, that was like a big deal, right? And it's funny, man, you think about some of this stuff, but I remember as, you know, young boy and then also a teenager going to movies and just escaping from the world that I was in for 2 hours. And I never knew I would be a filmmaker, but years later, when I had an opportunity to write something or do something, I was a fan of those films that transported you. You know what I mean? I remember like the Orion sign coming up and you'd be like, oh, this film, whatever, this film would be crazy. You know what I mean? But RoboCop or whatever the hell it was, they were movies that transported you for 2 hours. You know what I mean? Unlawful Entry. You know what I mean? You were like, dang, what are you gonna do now? And those movies just worked inside of me something different, man. So when I had an opportunity to go make a film, obviously I went down the horror path because that was a business decision for me. Because number one, I love the films, but number two, you don't need a star in a horror movie. So when everyone was telling me like, oh man, you got to go get this, I said, man, I don't know how to get none of them people. The star in a horror movie is, you know, someone with a mask on. So I'm like, oh, I could do that. Right? I.e., this is where Freddy Krueger and Jason and Nightmare on Elm Street and, you know what I mean? Like, this is where those worlds come from. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go that way. Now, what I didn't realize at the time was, and what no one really ever talks about is, those are the hardest movies to make. A horror film and a thriller are the hardest films to make. When you think about it, if you got a drama, it's great. Because you got it on the page, you got great performances. No one really cares where the camera's at. It's about those performances and what those people are doing, those actors. And I've worked with some of the greatest. Naomi, Hillary, like Jamie Foxx, like I know what that is. They get to be in their playground. When you start getting into these thrillers, I have to actually make you react. I have to give you a performance. Then I have to also make you react. So are you mad? Are you angry? Are you scared now? Damn, what world is he in? What's happening to him? Oh, he in the pressure cooker now. So all those things are a filmmaker behind the camera trying to push buttons. And I believe and comedy is the same way. I got to make you laugh. You know what I mean? So to me, I feel like those genres make you stronger and more powerful as a filmmaker because once you exercise those muscles enough, what's around the corner muscle, you know what I mean? I believe you can do any genre in the world that you want to do. And I just love this genre because I love audiences, man. I love making films where people like me can go to the theater and be like, oh, I've seen this movie before, and then 90 minutes in, you like, I ain't never seen it. Damn, he was living under the house.
Good point. Good point.
Which
Dion, which is now I'm gonna pivot to Fatale, because I go in and I guess my expectations, there's two different expectations for me when I watch movies. Sometimes I watch a trailer and then I go, okay, you told me something there. I'm going in with the expectation of looking at what you're doing and then seeing how it's executed. And then there are times when I walk into a movie just cold and I don't watch the trailer at all. And those films to me are probably the biggest adventure because I don't know anything. I'm a blank slate. Just take me where you're going to take me. But in this film, when I read the synopsis and saw the trailer, I was like, okay, I got an idea what this movie is going to be. But it freaked me out because you kept adding elements to it and layering it. And I was sitting up, with my lady, and we were watching it, and we were like, yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I mean, so you took a formula that we've seen so many times, and then you added elements to it that I honestly said I didn't see coming, man. So again, congratulations on that.
That's good, Tim. That's good.
I love Fatale, man. I mean, I thought Michael Ealy, who I have seen in my estimation, and I've told him this so I can say it out loud. I forget the film that he made where that promo they had him hiding under a bed. I was like,
oh yeah,
like
the perfect guy.
What is that, bro? So to see the brother in this film, and he's giving a performance, I'm like, okay, that's what we should have been doing the first time. And the fact also, I think he spoke about this with us, that Hilary Swank is a 2-time Oscar winner. Yeah. That I think almost is doing her career in reverse, because most people start off making these kinds of movies and then they kind of transition to more serious fare. She's already done all of the serious fare, so she's like, I'm gonna have some fun now. Your film, I forget the other one, The Hunt, that she did early this year. So how was it, first of all, asking an Oscar winner to do some of the things in a Dionne Taylor kind of thriller that you would, as you said earlier in your career, I get some people to play these roles. You didn't really need to have these folks, but now you got people stepping up recently, the Dennis Quaid's and now Hilary Swank's. So talk about bringing her into your cinematic universe.
Yeah, it was interesting, man. I was a fan. So when I was getting ready to go make the film, there was this incredible list of all these great actresses. And I was like, man, she's good. And I was like, but what about Hilary Swank? And everybody was like, what do you mean Hilary Swank? And I'm like, she would be great for this. And I remember just, a little bit of laughter, but I was like, we need someone that you don't see coming. And I wanted to find someone that this role is very, although it's a thriller and it's a fun movie, it's a very hard role to pull off. It's a lot going on. It's a storm constantly brewing. So I wanted someone we had never seen Hilary as a vixen. We had never seen her sexy. So I was like, that number one would be a shock for the audience. Like to see someone that you've never seen, right? Like this way. So that drew me, and then her obviously her acting and what she represents as an actress is, it's a no-brainer. And I knew that this lady had a secret. And you have to have a great actress to have a secret in a movie. You know what I mean? So that was kind of like what I was thinking. And when I went to her, obviously the first time I met her, she was like, oh my God, like, I just, you're just so great. I want to see, I heard about you. And I was like, wow, where her team and all of them were like, ain't nowhere in the world you finna go. She hadn't done The Hunt yet. She did The Hunt after this.
Wow. Okay.
Right? So she was like, I want to take a chance. And I was like, you got to take a chance. I said, look, the Black community loves you, by the way. She was like, what do you mean? I said, yeah. I said, $1 Million Baby's a Black movie, if you didn't know. She was like, are you? I said, it's boxing. It's in a dark gym. It's Morgan Freeman. I said, that's our film. You know what I mean? She was like, what? And I said, just trust me on this. I'm going to put you with someone that's going to be explosive. And when I tell you, man, it was one of the best performances of my life working with her. She was awesome, man. And she was a fan of me. She loved The Intruder. One of the first things she ever called me and said was, how did you get Dennis Quaid to do all that stuff? And I was like, he came, said, once we got on set, we was rocking. And I said, you going to be doing the same thing, Hilary? And she was like, I don't know. And we did it, man. And you're right. Like Ely, I think we had this discussion before. Ely is probably top 4 Black box office that we have. You know, I mean, he's had maybe two or three $100+ million films. And when I got to work with him for the first time in The Intruder, there was a couple of scenes with him and Dennis Quaid where I was like, wow, Michael can really go. That wasn't the film for that to happen. But when I had another opportunity, I wanted to match him against Hillary, and they were explosive. Like, man, some of those moments that he has in there with his mom and with her towards the back half of that movie, it's like, I mean, you see what you just said, Tim, which is he is that level of actor. He just hasn't been able to get those opportunities to play those roles. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of people are going to be very, very shocked to see him in this film the way he is. Not, you know, obviously hiding under a bed but more so there's a storm happening inside of this character as he's trying to figure out how to get out of something. And he's really, really good.
Man, he is, man. And you're absolutely right. I think it's all about the opportunity, man. This brother, like I said, man, I sat down with him when he was in D.C. a couple of years ago. I forget the film that he was promoting, but we had a conversation for 25 minutes. Really, really smart dude. I told him that if I ever transitioned out of being a critic and wanted to be a producer, that I saw him as Bob Marley in a biopic that I would love to produce. And I think the brother, man, has a lot of talent, man. I really do. So look at you now going, Bob Marley, I can do that. So all I want is bring me on set. I mean, because I got some ideas, man.
Tim, look, I went like this.
Yeah, man, because think about it. I told him, I said, you know, I thought about Ray years ago when I watched it, and I thought about how you could tell Bob's story in a biopic. And I was thinking about it, you know, I know that you're going to have issues with the accent. My significant other is Jamaican, so she's always telling me about, American actors trying to pull it off. But I'm like, man, I clearly see that brother, man, as somebody who could pull that off and really make something very exciting. I've told a couple of directors that, man. So if anybody, I keep planting the seed that somebody's going to hear that and go, Ely, Marley, yeah, that works.
Tim, producer. That's exactly right, man. That's how it's got to work. But you know what's interesting about that is he has the quiet mannerism. He's very internal. Mike is like Ely. If you've met him, which you have a few times, he's an internal person. He doesn't talk a lot. He's more very like Marley, where it's very thought out before he speaks. And that's very interesting, man. We might need to talk offline about that. I like that.
No, absolutely, bro. Now, the other part that I really want to talk about, and you had a luncheon with a bunch of us journalists, man, several weeks ago. And one of the things you pulled our coats to, man, which I thought was amazing, when you told the story of the relationship you have and now how you're working with 2-time Oscar nominee and BAFTA award recipient, cinematographer Dante Spinotti. Is it Spinotti? Spinotti. Okay, yeah, I don't want to mispronounce the brother's name. Talk a little bit about how, again, you heard me say earlier, how did you get people like Dennis Quaid and Hillary Swank into, I call it the Dionne Taylor cinematic universe. Again,
right.
Use that. Feel free to incorporate that into your.
I'm taking that, Tim.
How did you get Dante into this universe?
I wrote him a letter, and I think I told you the story, which was basically I was trying to do a film, and someone had asked me, "Tell me who the cinematographer is you want," and I was like, Dante Spinotti, and this person actually laughed in my face. It was like, I'm like, I laughed because I was just like, go get him. And strangely enough, someone at the table that was actually sitting there working on the production was like, I know him. Wow. As a matter of fact, I work with him. And my antennas went up because I'm going like, you work with him when? And she was like, 17 years ago. And we was like, was like 17 years ago, man, get out of here. And she was like, I might still have an email. So she looked in her phone and she had an old Earthlink email for Dante. And I remember going, is this real? And she was like, I think this might be his email. You just try it if you want. And everyone kept on eating lunch. Well, 10 minutes into me eating, Me being me, I'm like, I'm finna email this email.
Right.
So I emailed the email and I wrote this long letter. And I remember sitting there for like 20 minutes just typing, making sure I got it right. And inside the letter, I just said, hey, I'm just a fan. And I was like, I don't know if this is your email or not, but if it is, I would love to pick your brain. Now, here's the realism of this. Although I had asked for him to be my cinematographer, when I got the information to email him, I knew damn well I couldn't get this man. You know what I mean? I just was like, I'm going to email him to ask, could I spend time with him to ask about camera, because I am self-taught. And now it goes back to what you just said, Tim, which is I'm constantly trying to learn. How do you be better? How do you get opportunities to do this? And you have to also remember, on the level of films that I'm able to make at this price range, you can't make any mistakes. So if you got $30 million, $40 million, $25 million, that's why I look at some of these guys, I'm like, damn, you got $25 million to make that? You know what I mean? I'm going like, man, we got 4, and we got 19 days. So anything that I can get from people, I'm taking. Like, I'm like, how did you get that shot right there? How long does it take? So I emailed Dante to ask, can I meet you to talk camera? 3 days later, I'm driving down the street, the Earthlink email responds. And I'm going like, oh my God, it's him. Pull over, read the email. He's like, come to my house. Next thing I know, I'm at his house, walking up to the door, meet this man, and I'm in awe of him. And as the story goes, as you know, I sit down with him, Tim, have lunch, eat a whole bunch of shit that I would never eat. Cause I'm like, they're like, hey, you want some squid? I'm like, nah, but I eat it.
Man, eat that squid, man. You at Dante's house.
I'm like, yeah. So I'm having the squid, and I'm talking to him, and I get up to leave, and I was done. I had asked him all the questions I wanted about Heat, and asked him questions about Last Mohicans, Insider, and we had planned on meeting again in the next month or so. And I was like, man, thank you so much. Hugged him. Was leaving. He was like, wait, you came down here and you said you're filming a movie. Why didn't you pitch me your movie?
Wow.
And this is how my whole life changed. And I was like, I can't picture this movie, man. I'm making a $3 million movie, and you're getting ready to make, I'll leave the name of the movie out, but I was like, you're ready to make $150 million film. You are in 2 months. He was prepping. And I was like, I'm not finna pitch you he was like, sit down and tell me what your movie is. And that movie happened to be a film called Traffic that we were making for $2.5 million. And I was like, this is what it is. And he was like, why would you make a movie like that? And I was like, because I want to tell that how people are trafficked. I told him a story about my daughter. I was like, we got a letter one day, and I didn't realize as a Black man that Black and brown girls are the most trafficked girls in America. I thought it was a foreign thing because I watched the Liam Neeson movie. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I'm blown away to know that little girls in Oakland, Baltimore, Cleveland, right, Chicago, that's who's being trafficked, and they go in the bathroom and get taken in one moment. He was like, this is amazing. Give me 1 minute. This is a true story. He picked up an old phone, the kind with the thing like that, because he's 71 years old, and did that.
Rotary phone, got it.
And did that and waited. And I was like, yo, what is he doing? He called his agent and was like, I've just met a man here at my house, a young director. And he was like, we can discuss it later. But he was like, I'm going to go do a new movie. I'm not going to do this movie anymore. They talked for 5 minutes. I sat right there and watched him do that. Hang up the phone. He was like, when do we start?
Wow.
Changed my life. And that's when the first time I said to myself, man, you just don't know what God's going to do for you, no matter what. Like, we could be in this industry all we want, but the moment, man, that your intention is pure and that you're doing the right thing, man, God will put you exactly with the people he needs to put you with and place you exactly where he needs to place you. I would have never in a million years knew that Earthlink email,
wow,
right at a table as a joke, would lead me to working with arguably one of the best cinematographers in the world, to be now 3 pictures. It's crazy.
Yeah, so you've worked with him for 3 films. So, but let's tell people who Dante Spinotti is. He
Yes.
shot Heat, he shot The Last Mohegans, and he shot The Insider, which are 3 films out of the top 100 that have been shot. You've got that cinematographer in your universe now.
Got that guy, man, and Public Enemies. Got that cinematographer in my world, man.
Oh, he shot Public Enemies too.
Yeah.
With Johnny Depp. Wow.
With Johnny Depp.
Wow.
Yeah. And, it's amazing, man. I mean, look, I'm just a guy coming off of, these are Michael Mann films. These are movies that are $100+ million shooting over the course of a year. And he gets with me and we're on something like Black and Blue where we're shooting for 24 days, you know what I mean, with $9 million. And it's like, well, how's that going to work? Well, the reality is we both love art and we both love the passion of making film. And what I didn't realize was someone like him, he came from Manhunter, right? Which is Michael Mann's first film, right, which was a 14-day shoot, right? On the ground, everybody doing everything. He loved that. He's like, that's the energy, that's the drive. So here I'm going like, man, I'm trying to make it cool for you. Like, you got more time. He's like, no, do what you do. I'm with you. And I'm like, yeah, because when you're an independent filmmaker, you're on that set, Tim, which I'm making a movie like Fatale, man. I'm moving. Like, there is no tomorrow. Like, if that shot on the beach, I'm like, all right, Roxanne's like, Dion, you got 3 hours to get that shot in all your coverage. And I'm going like, damn, okay, I got it. What I choose is going to be what I choose. So for Dante, it's like, we're going to be here, we're going to be here. And it just gets your juices moving, man. It's like Clash, you know what I mean? It's like, all right, you guys got 20 minutes to sit in the circle and create a story. So everybody's like, oh, no. And then that was the funnest time in school. You know what I mean? When it's like, oh, you just be creative really quickly. You don't have time to think about it. And sometimes the best thing comes out of that. Now, do you want to keep doing that? No, you don't. Because eventually you want to get to a place now as a filmmaker where now I know time is everything. Time is everything. When you think of, some of these guys that are able to kind of step out here now that we talked about earlier and shoot a movie for 3-4 months. I mean, man, the beauty of that is kind of like now you're going like, oh man, I could really get this scene right and really turn the corner there, and half that shit gonna end up on the floor anyway. You know what I mean? Because I know in my process, I know how much I got on the floor. So I can only imagine a Marvel film. You know what I mean? Where you're like, you're gonna shoot for a year for a 90-minute movie, man, you got 6 movies on the floor. But yeah, I mean, that's the process. That's what's great about Dante. And obviously, this year, Tim, I'm so thankful and grateful for him that I'm trying to push him for every award, man, that there is, because his humbleness, his thought process, and the type of man he is needs to be awarded for dealing with someone like me. Not to mention, Fatale to me, as an LA noir thriller, is beautiful. I mean, he put his foot in that movie. So if you don't like Dion, I encourage you to go watch the film for Dante, because some of that stuff he did, man, like in Vegas and the stuff he did on the beach and the sun, and when Michael Ealy comes back to the beach house, some of that shit is like, you got to watch it to see it. You know what I mean? But it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
So, and also you told us that this was the first time he had shot LA on film since Heat. And I want, and you actually took one of the questions I was going to tell you, because I was going to say the look of the film. When I told you stepped it up to the next level, the look of Fatale is just absolutely brilliant. And those shots, and you're absolutely right, those shots in the film, that beach scene is really impressive. Both of them. The one, as you said, when Michael and Hillary are on the beach, and then when he comes back with the beach as the backdrop through the.
Oh, man.
Wow. Yeah, man.
It's next level, man. And yeah, I mean, some of that stuff, you're like, the trailer, if you watch the trailer, you're like, damn, that movie looks good. You know what I mean? But when you see the film and you see Lamborghinis flying out of the house at night, you know what I mean? Him standing by like the pool and her loft and going up in these like the elevator, rickety elevator, it's just like, he's that good. You know what I mean? And someone like yourself, Tim, and other people that really appreciate film like me, I watched the movie the other night and I was just like, I know what it could look like. Do you know what I mean? Like without him. So you go, wow, man, you have to just understand how beautiful of a man he is, number one, but number two, just he has a gift. You know what I mean? And that gift is lighting. And he definitely came to play in Fatale. Definitely.
So, Michael, I probably got about another 5 minutes left because I know your reps are blowing me up, man. So, question, man. So, since you got on the shirt, man, pull back and let us read the shirt, man, because that shirt is really your mantra.
Oh, this is change the narrative.
Yeah, brother. That's what I'm saying. I saw it. So I wanted you to put that on camera for folks.
Yeah.
What are you, again, it's always about the who first. So, you got other projects that are coming. I know you're prepping. Are you prepping or have you shot All-Star Weekend?
No, we shot that. That's done. We're waiting for Jamie and them to get the release date for that.
All right, so cool. And then I know you got a couple other projects, but who do you want to get an opportunity to work with? I know when people ask that question, it's sort of like a shot in the dark. But for you, I've seen some of the stuff you pulled off inside of these 10 years that you've been working. Who's next to enter the Dionne Taylor universe that might be a surprise?
Man, well, I would love to do something with Will Smith. I would love to get him. I think Will is obviously incredible. But I think there's something dynamic that me and him could do together. I think I touch a different audience, like a street level that I would love to pull him into. And then he has another audience. And I just feel like he's that actor right now for me where I'm going like, man, we haven't explored some of the stuff we need to explore with him. I thought Bad Boys, his last movie was really good. It was we was gonna go see Bad Boys. We would go see Bad Boys 9. You know what I mean? Just because we love that. You know what I mean? But it's something very interesting about Will Smith with a gun that I feel like if there was a world to put him in, in one of those worlds where we've seen Ray Liotta, you know what I mean? Or in one of those worlds where we've seen Liam Neeson, you know what I mean? Like something like that is interesting to me. Very dark, mysterious script where he gets to do all the things he does extremely well, but play it a different way.
All right, Dion, I got 2 more questions for you. And I really want to hit and get your feedback on both of these. Several years ago when Beale Street Could Talk was out, I sat down with Barry Jenkins and talked to him probably a half an hour, man. And inside of that conversation, what came out is the fact that he said that, because I asked him, do you talk to your peers? And he said, do we talk? He said, man, we do a weekly email. He said, man, so he started naming directors. And he said, he talked about how he was struggling one day on set and Ryan Coogler called him up and gave him some tips to help him work out a scene. Do you get an opportunity, man, to talk to some of your peers, man, not just about the art that you guys are making, but the impact, as your shirt says, of changing the narrative of how you guys as artists are all trying to kind of promote and tell stories about the Black experience in America?
So I have a different group of people that I might lean on for different things. Unfortunately for me, I don't know anyone doing this at this level this fast. Right. So, a phone call to another director might be like, well, I don't know what you
Right.
They might be like, yo, I don't know what you doing. Now people call me to be like, what do you think, Dion? And I'm always kind of answering that. But I really talk I talk to people a lot. When I shoot, I'm talking to gaffers and people that hold lights. I talk to script supervisors a lot. I talk to people because most of the time what I'm trying to figure out is what's going to make people react, not director questions. I'm kind of logical in terms of where I know where to put the camera and all of that. And, I'm doing 70 setups a day. So my thing is more internal, like, yo, what would you do if this happened? You know what I mean? I like that. So if you was around me, Tim, I'd be like, Tim, hey, what would you do if this dude like said this to you? You know what I mean? You'd be like, man, I think I would. And I'm analyzing that because I want to use that information. I think that little network that those guys have is really great. I'm beginning to build one. I talk to Joe Carnahan a lot, which I'm a giant fan of. I have a really, really dope relationship with Nate Parker, who I spend a lot of time on the phone with him, you know, just talking creatively, different things. We have two completely different styles, which is dope. Because he's like, man, how do you do that? How do you get the, and I'm like, well, how do you get the, and that's interesting for both of us because we both have messaging, except I do a little bit more commercial. He does a little bit more right down that line. So I love talking to him. You know, obviously Brett Ratner, some people like that. I talked to him a lot just about what he was doing commercially. How did he do some of the stuff he did? And I find interesting, man, like, these people are no different than us. You know what I mean? It's like they don't have no, you know, it's the mystery of directing people that's going, when I shot the shot, I was thinking, my eye moved twice and I knew it was the right move. I'm like, dude, you don't make movies like that, man. Like, you make movies from your heart and you make movies emotionally and you make movies because that's the movie you want to see. And someone asked me about a week ago, which I thought was and it was like, I never heard anyone say this. It was like, what do you think about critics and how critics see your movie? And I said, well, I can only do one thing. I can only make a film for an audience because that's who's going to see it. If I tried to make movies for all the critics, then I would be in a bad place because now I'm trying to analyze how he moves and what he says. But I want critics to know this is a Deon Taylor film. You know what I mean? It took a while for people to understand what a Spike Lee joint was. You know what I mean? It took a while for people to understand what a Stanley Kubrick film was. You know what I mean? So I want you to know I have went down that road of being like, what is he doing? And now we got to the point where people are like, damn, that's pretty dope. And that's a Deon Taylor film. So part of it is like, which I think we had this conversation before, it's like, man, Bill Cartwright got an ugly jump shot. You know what I mean? But damn, he making it. So you got to be like, all right, look, I can't critique him like Larry Bird. I got to critique him a little bit differently. But I just think film is beautiful, man. And Tim, I tell you, like I've said to you a few times, I love what you guys do. Like, I just love being around people that love film because I love film, man. Like, I like watching it. I like talking about it. And I like the fact that we're getting into it as Black people. You guys have been doing this for a long time. And it's important that we keep changing the narrative and keep switching up on them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in the rooms now, man. They going like, damn, wait, do you think you can do Nightmare on Elm Street? And I'm like, yes, I do. And I'll tell you exactly how I can. That's what we need. You know what I mean? That's what we need, man. We got Barry and we got Antoine and we got Ryan with Black Panther. You need me right now to come in and do that other shit. You know what I mean? Like, because that's the commercial viability that we need. So this stuff generates, and then we bring more in that can make more commercially successful films that have messaging, you know? But I'm just excited, man. Here it is, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm sweating and screaming.
So I'm saying, when you look at it, Dion, what you're talking about is the whole totality of the Black experience. And the Black experience is not just about making all films that have people that look like us, but it's all of us having the ability to tell the stories that we want to tell, which leads me to my final question, brother, because you set it up perfectly. One of the things that people who really know me, and you know, the Wilsons, the Shawns, all of the other Black critics that we all rock with, I always tell them, man, that for me, you know, when I talked about growth and being self-taught, like you talked about a lot, I spent a lot of time watching Turner Classic Movies, man. I love classic films, man. And even in my house, when I'm getting a lot of grief, when Charlie Chaplin stuff comes on and I'm watching City Lights and Modern Times, for me, in order to grow in this industry, you got to watch enough of the base of films that came out of the golden era of Hollywood or the golden age of Hollywood to help inform you. Because if you watch a lot of those films, in my mind as a producer, I see films a certain way because I'm like, wow, Chaplin did this in the film. I saw Brando do this in the film. I saw Montgomery Clift do this. I would love to incorporate those elements into a modern film with a more contemporary take and twist.
Yes.
How do you look at, do you have an opportunity? I know you're working a lot and planning projects and things of that nature, but do you get a chance to really sit down on your leisure time and like watch film, study film, look at shots, get ideas from things that may have come before?
Always. That's what I do. I'm just kind of watching stuff. Fatale came from Strangers on the Train.
Wow.
You know, I'm always kind of like, damn, it'd be dope to flip that or take that idea and use it a different way. You know, I often say that you can't reinvent the wheel, but you can put rims on it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of my whole motto. It's like all these films have been done before. You know what I mean? I think there's something like 12 pitch points where you're like, after the, what 6, right? 6
Yeah,
of them.
I once gave a talk about 6 points. You know, it's man versus man, man versus
Yeah.
nature, man versus.
At some point, you're like, all right. Somebody was like, man, I've seen this movie before. I said, well, you also seen Spider-Man 20. So it's like, at some point, it's like, all right, it's kind of what can you do in there? And that's what I think made Hitchcock and Stanley Kubrick and those guys so great, was they took those same stories that we knew, but it was like what they did in between the lines. You know what I mean? You're like, damn, this is crazy. And those are the people that I'm really looking at, because I'm going like, okay, when I get a certain amount of money where I can really get in here and play and really take people down rabbit holes, you know, one of the most interesting films for me, I mean, it's not that interesting now, but what was really like, wait, what's happening when I was younger was Jacob's Ladder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that film was, it was the first time I was like, there was an alternate world. You know what I mean? So although it falls in the same genre, it was done differently. And I'm giving that as an example because without that movie, you don't get a Sixth Sense. Right? Like, without that film, M. Night Shyamalan doesn't make that film. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, that's kind of where we're going. But as Black filmmakers, Black writers, Black critics, and also getting ready to be Black producers like yourself, Tim, like what I think is interesting is we have to keep marching that way. These movies have to be universal. Like, we do want movies that we have everyone's Black in the film. But what I try to do in every movie that I've made is I try to make a Black universal picture, meaning that Naomi Harris was in a world as a Black female, but everything around her was the world. Do you know what I mean? She's the lead though, right? Same exact thing with Dennis Quaid and Megan Good. Like, they're the leads in a universal looking film. You know what I mean? And there's no different with Michael Ealy and Hilary Swank. Right now, we got 2 guys that play universal roles every time. That's Denzel and Will Smith. Right. No one questions anything. Oh, that's a Black man. Like, no one questions if Denzel's Black or white in the film. He has dated Latino, white, Asian. It don't matter because you're only seeing him as an actor. And I feel like that's really important to get out of, oh, it's a Black man and he gotta, like, I feel like, no, we know what our story is. Now let's empower our culture by making sure that these themes can travel internationally. So putting Michael Ealy in Fatale, and he has a successful company, and he has a $5 million house, and he has, you know what I mean? Everything is there. It's like, damn. And now all this stuff happens to him. That normally would be Nicolas Cage. You know what I mean? So I'm going like, all right, this is for us. So I just love thematically changing the narrative of how we see things and making sure that we're pushing it up even more. And that's what we've been doing as Black filmmakers, all of us over the last, 10, 15 years.
Man, my takeaway message from Fatale was a lot can happen to you if you get from under that bed and accept. Oh man, I can't see. This is why I got to talk to Michael again, because that's my running joke. I'm like, why are you? Never mind, man. Dion, I want to thank you for your time. Fatale opens in theaters Now talk about the distribution. It's December the 18th. Are you theaters? Are you video on demand? PVO?
No. So the movie is in theaters nationwide. Whatever theaters are open. This was me pushing Lionsgate to make sure whoever could have an experience safely to see a movie in a theater, that they could do that. I'm a fan of theaters, and as a Black filmmaker, one of the things that I'm fighting for right now is to make sure we don't lose that lane.
Right.
Period. And I know that's a whole nother conversation, but as I begin to look at how things are going with streaming, I'm seeing a lot of our films, I'm seeing 99.9% of our stuff starting to go to streaming. And what I don't want to have happen is the world opens up in 7 months and all of a sudden theaters are back open and we on streaming.
Right.
So I'm fighting to make sure that this movie has a box office. I don't care if it's $2 million. I want to make sure that it went to the theaters and it had a box office, and then it'll play in all those other worlds. But it's just important for me because it took me 15 years to make sure these movies got to the theater. You know, it was only 3 years ago that I got to pay for a ticket and go see my own movie. So at this point, I'm like, pandemic, war, my shit gonna be over there. I need mine to be in there, man, because I know what the straight to DVD, whatever all that is. I don't want none of that. I want to be over here where you can sit in the theater and see your movie, because you work hard for that. Right. You work hard for that thing to come on and the thing to play and the nice. That is the Super Bowl for a director.
Right.
It's sitting in the theater. Yes.
All right. So December the 18th, this Friday. Wear a mask, get a vaccine, do it all. Spread out.
Take Dr. Fauci with you, whatever you got to do. Go see Fatale, man.
Fatale opening. Dion, brother, we need to talk again because we got some other stuff to talk about.
Yes.
But brother, it is always a pleasure. And as I said, man, I know it's cliche, man, when people, tell you when you talk to them, you're one of my favorites. You actually are one of my favorites, bro. And I love Nate. Nate's somebody I talk to as well.
Yeah.
There's some good brothers out there getting this stuff done, man. But I love your attitude. I love the fact that you love film. A lot of times I watch some directors and I'm like, do you really like what you do? But we know you and give your love, man, to your producing partner and your wife, man.
Yes.
I love the fact that two of you guys are working together to bring that Taylor name up, man. It's like it's about them Taylors, man. What's up?
Man, we working on it, man. So my little boy one day, man, he be talking to you. I'm like, man, Tim, my dad used to.
No.
Get it there, man.
Your little boy will be talking to some little boy I got. He won't be talking to me. That's another story entirely. Dion, I got to run, bro. Hey, man, Fatale in theaters, December the 18th. Dion, you have a happy holiday, man, and let's get together and do this again, bro.
Definitely, Tim. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, man. And be safe and Merry Christmas, man.
All right, to you as well, man. And give your love to the wife, man.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Love you, brother.
Love you too, man.